Assalamualaikum and a very good day to Dr. Maizura. My name is Nurin Iman, and together with my teammates Nur Hidayah, Muhammad Firdaus and Muhammad Ashraf, we'll be presenting on the fascinating country of Mongolia. So our presentation will cover an overview of the country, its cultural elements, and the core values that shape the identity of the Mongolian people. And we'll also be exploring some key issues that are currently impacting the country, such as climate change, urbanization, cultural erosion, and the tension between mining development and the traditional nomadic lifestyle. So I will bring you to an overview of Mongolia, taking through its location and geography, the key demographic features, and a little bit of a snapshot of its political system and economic landscape. Mongolia is located in northern Asia, sandwiched between Russia to the north and China to the south. So it is a landlocked country. It is one of the world's largest countries by land area, around 1.56 million square kilometers, yet it has one of the lowest population densities in the world. The terrain ranges from the arid Gobi Desert in the south and also grasslands and forested mountains in the north and west. And it sits at an average elevation of about 1,580 meters above sea level, which makes Mongolia a high altitude plateau. Mongolia is also known as the land of the eternal blue sky because it enjoys over 250 sunny days each year. However, the climate can still be harsh and extremely continental depending on the location, with long dry winters and temperatures that can drop a good way below negative 30 degrees Celsius. The summers in Mongolia are short but can be quite warm. Mongolia has a population of approximately 3.4 million as of 2024, and nearly half, 47% of the population lives in Ulaanbaatar, the capital city, which makes it the most urbanized area. What makes Mongolia unique is that around 30% of its people still live a nomadic or a semi-nomadic lifestyle. So these communities, they move across the land with their livestock, living in portable tents known as gurs. Ethnically, Mongolia is quite homogeneous. Around 95% of the population are Khalkha Mongols, while minority groups include Kazakhs, Tuvans, Buryats, and others. Politically, Mongolia is a parliamentary republic. Its constitution was adopted in 1992 after the country transitioned from a socialist system to a democracy. The president serves as head of state and has limited powers, such as the ability to veto laws and represent the country internationally. Meanwhile, the prime minister leads the cabinet and holds executive authority. The state Great Khural is Mongolia's unicameral parliament with 76 members. The country holds multi-party elections every 4 years, with the Mongolian People's Party and Democratic Party being the most influential. Economically, Mongolia shifted to a market economy in the early 1990s. Its economy is heavily reliant on mining, especially for copper, gold, coal, and uranium, all of which are high demand globally. And other significant sectors include livestock herding and cashmere production. So Mongolia is one of the world's top exporters of cashmere. However, the economy is highly dependent on exports to China, which creates vulnerability to the country. To address this, the Mongolia government launched a strategic plan called Vision 2050, aiming to diversify its trades and reduce reliance on neighboring countries. Now, let's take a closer look at the cultural side of Mongolia. And despite modernization and urbanization, Mongolia has done a very remarkable job of preserving its traditional values and lifestyle. In this section, I will touch on some aspects which are spiritual beliefs, language and national symbols, cultural celebrations, especially the Nadam festival, and the traditional clothing of the Mongolian people. Mongolia's spiritual foundation is rooted in a dual belief system, which is Tibetan Buddhism and shamanism. Buddhism became dominant in the 16th century, and although it was suppressed during the communist era, it saw a resurgence after the year 1990. Today, Buddhist temples and monasteries are active again, especially in urban areas. At the same time, shamanism, which is an indigenous spiritual practice that connects people to nature and ancestral spirits, is still very much respected and practiced, especially in the countryside. So, a common spiritual ritual involves making offerings at uvu, which are sacred stone heaps found at mountain passes. This can be shown in the picture in the slide. So travelers, they circle the uvu 3 times and leave offerings such as milk or alcohol or incense to ensure safe travels and harmony. So this deep respect for nature, ancestors, and spiritual balance is central to the Mongolian worldview. Moving on to language and symbol. So the official language of Mongolia is Mongolian, specifically the Khalkha dialect, which is spoken by around 95% of the population. And while the Cyrillic script is used for everyday writing, the traditional vertical Mongolian script is still taught in schools and used in ceremonial or artistic contexts. In the western provinces, minority languages like Kazakh and Tuvan are also spoken. Meanwhile, foreign languages like English, Russian, and Chinese are also increasingly studied as second or third languages, especially by young people and professionals. So moving on to one of the most important national symbols is the Soyombo, which is found on the Mongolian flag. So it includes symbols representing fire, sun, moon, earth, water, and balance. And it is a powerful emblem of national pride and independence. Now let's look into another cultural element, which is the cultural celebration in Mongolia. One of the most iconic and beloved events in Mongolia is the Nadam festival, which takes place every July across the country. So Nadam means games, and it features Mongolia's traditional 3 manly sports, which are wrestling, horse racing, and archery. So these sports reflect the martial skills that were highly valued during the era of Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire. The festival dates back to ancient times but was formalized in 1921 during the founding of the People's Republic of Mongolia. So today it is celebrated as the country's national day, commemorating Mongolia's independence from China and the formation of a modern nation state. So the games, number 1 is wrestling, is considered the most prestigious sport where there are no weight classes and wrestlers wear traditional outfits and perform an eagle dance after a victory. Meanwhile, in the horse races, young jockeys, some as young as 5 years old, ride for distances up to 30 kilometers, testing the endurance of the horses rather than speed alone. The last game, which is archery, is open to both men and women, uses traditional bows with archers aiming at leather targets and being cheered on with the word Ukai. But Nadam is more than just sports for the community. It's a powerful expression of national pride and unity, which brings families together to wear traditional clothing and enjoy Mongolian food and celebrate their rich heritage. The Nadam festival is recognized by UNESCO as part of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity, which reflects how deeply Mongolians value both tradition and identity. Lastly, let's look at the traditional clothing. So, Mongolian traditional clothing is both functional and symbolic, especially for the nomadic life. The most iconic outfit is the deal, which is a long robe secured by a sash, and it's worn by both men and women. It is designed to protect against Mongolia's extreme weather and allows freedom of movement for horse riding and herding. So the design, the color, and fabric of the deal can actually indicate a person's region, social status, or occasion. So for instance, weddings or festivals. So during events like Nadam or the Lunar New Year, also known as Sagan Sar, Mongolians wear elaborate deals with embroidered patterns, ornate boots, and traditional hats, as seen in this photo. Traditional clothing is still proudly worn in the rural areas and during national celebrations, symbolizing their cultural pride and tradition continuity. So from these cultural elements, you can see Mongolia is a country where modern governance and ancient traditions coexist. From its rich spiritual heritage and national celebrations to its unique language and traditional dress. So Mongolian culture is a testament to adaptability to modern times, their resilience and pride towards their culture.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Nur Hidayah binti Fahmi, and I'll be presenting on the core values of the Mongolian people. So, Mongolian values are strongly shaped by the nomadic heritage, deep connection with nature, and a need for community survival in a harsh environment. And we'll look at 4 key values that represent their worldview and way of life. Number 1, nomadic knowledge and ecological wisdom. 2, cultural resilience and adaptation. 3, hospitality as a social value. And finally, the 4th one is the spiritual value of land, which they refer to as Nutag, meaning homeland in a very sacred sense. So one of the most important Mongolian values is their ecological wisdom passed down orally from generation to generation. For example, herders don't just move randomly. They observe the weather, grazing cycle, and natural signs to decide when and where to move. This traditional ecological knowledge, or TEK, teaches restraint, patience, and sustainability. Studies by Seal and Tujamba show that even rituals like placing stones on sacred mounds reflect the spiritual respect for nature. From a global perspective, based on Globe Cultural Framework, Mongolia scores high in future orientation. This means that they are used to thinking long term, and it shows in how they manage land. They also score moderately on performance orientation, meaning herders value mastery of nature more than profit or competition. Mongolians are incredibly resilient, not just physically but culturally. They face intense winters, climate shocks, and market pressures. Globalization is bringing change fast, but the core values are still holding strong. Their ability to adapt without losing identity is a value in itself. Research by Tujamba and Kim shows that herders continue to practice collective values even as they modernize, especially for youth. Moving to cities, balancing tradition and change becomes a defining challenge. And based on the Globe study, Mongolia has low to moderate uncertainty avoidance, which means they are generally more flexible when facing change. They also show high institutional collectivism, so community decisions and mutual support are key in how they adapt. One of the most visible and important values in Mongolian society is hospitality, or Zukmgoi Zen. This isn't seen as optional. It's a cultural expectation. It comes from the idea that survival in the vast steppe depends on generosity. Guests are offered food, drinks like arak, which means fermented mare's milk, and shelter, even if they are complete strangers. Refusing to host someone is not just impolite, it's considered dishonorable. Researchers like Seal, Smith describe this as part of Mongolian identity. Even simple meals like yak meat or milk are considered acts of respect and care, not just nutrition. Looking at globe cultural framework, Mongolia scores high in human orientation, meaning kindness, fairness, and empathy are strong values. Also, in group collectivism plays a role here, where people help others in the broader nomadic network, not just their own family. In Mongolia, land is much more than just property. It's deeply spiritual. The word nutag refers to one's homeland, but also includes emotional and ancestral meaning. It's where your family, your roots, and your spirits belong. Many Mongolians feel an obligation to their nutag, and losing land due to urbanization or mining can feel like losing part of their identity. According to research by Duvchin and Duvchin, this connection to land carries spiritual weight, memory, and belonging. Globe dimensions support this too. Mongolia scores low in assertiveness, meaning they prefer harmony with nature over control. And power distance is also relatively low. Spiritual values and ancestors are often seen as more powerful than institutional authority. So, land for them is sacred, not to be owned, but to be respected. So, to sum everything up, Mongolian values are shaped by a powerful combination of nomadism, nature, and close kinship ties. These values, like ecological wisdom, hospitality, and spiritual connection to land, are very much still alive today. These aren't just traditions, they are part of how people live, think, and act. Using the globe framework help us see how values like in-group collectivism, human orientation, and future orientation influence behavior, especially in how Mongolians adapt without losing their roots. And most importantly, Mongolian cultural resilience shows us that adaptation doesn't mean forgetting your values. It means keeping your identity while still evolving with the world.
The first issue faced by the Mongolian is climate change and ZAD. Let's begin by picturing Mongolia's vast open steppes in the late autumn. A herder family, like thousands across the country, is preparing for winter. They reinforce the wall of their ger, store dried grass for livestock, and offer prayers at the Uvu Mound, asking the spirits for a mild season. But what comes isn't mild, it's a Zad. Now, for those unfamiliar, a Zad is no ordinary winter. It's a devastating phenomenon unique to Mongolia, marked by extreme cold, temperature below minus 30 degrees Celsius, combined with strong winds, heavy snowfall, and surface ice. Those conditions prevent animals from grazing, leading to widespread livestock death. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, in the 2023 to 2024 winter, 90% of the country was blanketed in snow, the highest in 49 years. Livestock starved, family lost everything. And this is not a one-off. With climate change, ZAD is becoming more frequent, more severe, and more unpredictable. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, for Mongolia's 200,000 nomadic households, livestock are more than income. They are family, heritage, and survival. When the animal die, so does a way of life. Many have no choice but to pack up and move to the crowded outskirts of Ulaanbaatar, leaving behind the land, the lifestyle, and the spiritual world they once knew. What heartbreaking is the herders used to survive ZAD. They followed the rhythm of nature, reading wind's pattern, observing animal behavior, rotating pastures to let the land breathe. But according to Tukjamba, the scale of today's climate disruption has overwhelmed these ancestral practices. The old knowledge isn't gone, but it's no longer enough on its own. To address this, the Mongolian government and its international partner have introduced some forward-thinking solutions. According to the World Bank, one of them is index-based livestock insurance, essentially a safety net that pays herders when regional livestock deaths spike. According to FAO, another intervention is a satellite-based early warning system, which alert communities to prepare or relocate before a ZAD hits. There are even mobile climate education teams that travel across the steppes, offering training in pasture management and feeding strategies. But here's the culture tension. Many herders don't trust intervention. They prefer to rely on their oral tradition, their elders' wisdom and spiritual sign. As Seal et al. Point out, to the herders, satellite image is abstract. What they trust are the movement of the sky, the behavior of the horses, the frost pattern on their windows. And this brings us to a deeper issue, communication. We often assume that good policies need only good data, but in a culture like Mongolia's, where knowledge is high context, built on intuition, symbol, and spiritual harmony, solutions need to speak the same language. Otherwise, they fall flat. So what do? We listen, we collaborate, and we create culturally embedded responses that respect both science and tradition. Because if we hope to support Mongolia's herding communities in this era of climate turmoil, we must treat them not just as recipients of aid, but as custodians of a deep, enduring ecological wisdom. The second issue faced by the Mongolian is urbanization and cultural erosion. Now let's shift from the steppes to the city. Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia's capital, is expanding rapidly. Just 20 years ago, it housed a quarter of the national population. Here, just beyond the towering glass building and city malls, are sprawling hills of round white tents, the Ger district. At night, from above, the city looks like two different worlds stitched together. Modern ambition glowing in the center, and tradition clinging to the edge. Over the last 20 years, the number of people moving to Ulaanbaatar has skyrocketed. According to Asian Development Bank, as of 2024, more than 45% of Mongolia population now lives in the capital. As pointed by Dorsuren, many of these people didn't move by choice. They were pushed here by the bitter cold of ZAD winters, by dying herds, and by the promise of jobs and schooling in the city. But the city isn't ready. Most of these newcomers settle in Ger district, neighborhoods built around the traditional Mongolian felt tent. These Ger were once mobile homes on the steppe, designed to be packed and move with the seasons. Now they are permanent, packed lightly on city hillside. They have no plumbing, no clean heating, no central power, and because of the coal burn to keep warm, they're contributing to Ulaanbaatar choking winter air pollution, as pointed out by the Branigan. At first glance, these areas seem like symbol of poverty, but that's not the whole story. Young families are starting to reimagine Ger living, adding solar panel, composting toilet, and even Wi-Fi. According to the diplomat, this modernized Ger reflects something powerful, not cultural loss, but cultural reinvention. People are adapting, not surrendering. Still, a quiet danger lingers. Many children growing up in this urban zone have never heard it sheep. They have never heard throat singing echoes across a valley. They have never been taught to read the star or offer milk to the sky. The disconnect has led to what this student called intergenerational amnesia, the slow forgetting of who we are when we no longer live how we once did. In response, according to the Asian Development Bank, The government has launched the Smart Ulaanbaatar initiative, aiming to modernize infrastructure while also supporting cultural centers where youth can learn traditional music, craft, and language. According to Dorsuren, NGOs are stepping in too, building digital archive of folk song and shamanic stories, and introducing them through social curricula. But there's a danger in turning culture into content. When heritage become a downloadable apps or staged tourist performance, it risks losing its soul. As Seal et al. Warned, this effort, while well-meaning, can sometimes flatten culture into something to consume rather than something to live. This whole issue points to a larger intercultural dilemma. How do we reconcile Mongolia's high context tradition, which are rooted in land, silent, and spiritually, with a low context framework of digital life and modern policy? The answer may lie not in choosing one over the other, but in co-creation, finding ways to let culture evolve without letting it disappear. Because behind every girl, whether on the steppes or in the city, it's a family trying to hold into something older than steel and concrete, a way of life that still matters even as the skyline changes.
Alright, thank you, Firdaus. Now, I'll continue my group presentation by explaining about the third issue, which is mining versus nomadic tradition in Mongolia. Mongolia is a country often admired for its unique nomadic culture, a way of life that has survived for centuries. The image of herders riding horses across the open steppe, living in traditional gears, and moving in harmony with nature is more than just romantic. It is a genuine cultural system built on ecological knowledge, independence, and sustainability. But in recent years, this traditional way of life has come into conflict with a new force, which is the rapidly expanding mining industry. This clash between economic modernization and cultural preservation is not unique to Mongolia, but in Mongolia, it is happening on a large and visible scale. In this part of presentation, I will now explore how mining has reshaped both the physical landscape and the cultural fabric of Mongolia, and why this issue raises important questions about cultural survival in a globalized world. The rise of Mongolia's mining sector. Over the last 2 decades, mining has become the backbone of Mongolia's economy, with vast reserves of coal, copper, gold, and rare earth elements. The country has attracted billions in foreign investment. Today, the mining sector contributes more than 20% to the national GDP and accounts for nearly 90% of exports. One of the most prominent projects is the Oyu Tolgoi copper and gold mine, developed with Rio Tinto, which is considered one of the largest of its kind globally. Most mining operations are concentrated in the South Gobi region, an area that is not only rich in minerals, but also historically inhabited by nomadic communities. With this means is that economic expansion is quite literally occurring on top of cultural roots. The very land that has supported generation of herders is being reshaped for extraction and export. While the mining boom has created jobs and raised Mongolia's global economic profile, it has also introduced deep social and environmental disruptions, especially for the nomads who live closest to these projects. Displacement of traditional nomadic life. For Mongolian nomads, land is more than property. It is the foundation of their identity, economy, and community. When mining sites take over grazing areas, it is not just an inconvenience, it makes traditional herding unsustainable. Dust from the roads, noise from heavy machinery, and blocked migration paths all affect livestock health and disrupt centuries-old herding patterns. Access to clean water is another serious issue. Many water sources used by herders are either contaminated by mining runoff or diverted to serve industrial needs. As a result, many nomadic families are no longer able to sustain their way of life and are forced to migrate to urban areas. But relocation often leads to economic hardship, social disconnection, and a sense of cultural loss. Herders who once relied on land animals and ancestral knowledge now struggle to adapt to city life where those skills carry little weight. This is not just about displacement from land. It is about disconnection from a heritage and identity that once gave meaning to the Mongolians' daily life. Cultural identity versus economic development. Naturally, this has led to tension. Nomadic communities are not remaining silent. In recent years, they have organized protests, signed petitions, and collaborated with NGOs to call for more responsible development. Their message is clear. Economic progress should not come at the cost of erasing cultural identity. At the same time, the Mongolian government faces a difficult task. On one hand, mining revenues are vital to national development, but on the other hand, the government is under increasing pressure to protect the environment and cultural heritage of its people. This situation raises important questions. Can economic development and cultural preservation coexist? Is there a way to integrate traditional knowledge into national planning? For many observers, the answer lies in inclusive development. Strategies that involve local communities, respect ancestral land rights, and incorporate environmental ethics drawn from nomadic philosophies. Nomadism is not backwards or outdated. In many ways, it offers lessons in sustainability and adaptability that modern systems lack. The challenges is not eliminate tradition in favor of progress, but to build a future where both can thrive together. As we wrap up our presentation, we return to a central question. How can Mongolia move forward without losing what makes it unique? We have seen how culture, identity, and environment are closely linked from the presentation presented by my group members and how each is being tested by climate pressures, urbanization, and the rise of mining. But we have also seen how communities are pushing back, reasserting the value of their traditions and asking for a voice in shaping the future. Mongolia's story is more than a case study. It is a reflection of what many nations are facing. The push and pull between preserving who we are and embracing what is next. If globalization is to be truly inclusive, it must allow space for diversity to survive. Not just economically, but culturally and spiritually as well. Preserving Mongolia's nomadic identity is not about resisting change. It is about ensuring that progress does not come at the cost of people's connection to land, history, and each other. Ultimately, intercultural understanding is not just about learning other cultures, it is about respecting their right to exist in the face of global changes. That marks the end of our presentation. Thank you and Assalamu alaikum.